Welcome along to the show. This is Graves on Gridiron. I'm your host, Richard Graves, and through the postseason, our record stands at 7-4-1 against the line. So for the big game itself, we've called in a big gun. All the way from Super Bowl Central, New Orleans, Louisiana, Bob Sturm, American football broadcaster, sports broadcaster. We spoke to you on the show last year in Las Vegas. You made it back to New Orleans this time. I am still in the UK. I didn't make the flight, but it's great to see you.
Man, I'm sorry we can't do this in person, but Richard, it's always a pleasure. You know that.
Now, I've got to pull you up before we start, because regular listeners of the show will be aware that I may be of a blue persuasion on Merseyside. What
Yes,
is
sir.
that T-shirt you're wearing?
It just says you'll never walk alone, Richard, right? Yeah, I mean
It
so it's
sickens
the red
me.
side. It's the red side. No, I'm having a good year, but I'm also a little nervy right now. I feel like we can get this over the finish line, but as you know, Liverpool have been in a good position many times around Super Bowl Sunday, and it hasn't always closed the deal. So just we're cautiously optimistic at how good Slotty has us going.
Explain nervy to me. 6 points clear, a game in hand over Arsenal, everybody else in your wake. If that's nervy, give me some of it.
No, you're right. You're right. I don't know. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop because, as you know, any Liverpool supporter who's been doing this a while, and I only go back 24 years, but been doing it a while. I mean, now I can make fun of the newcomers a little bit more. I will just say that in general, this has been too. I don't want to say easy. This has been too crisis free. And especially with the looming contracts with Verge and Mo, and of course Trent, there's a lot of distractions. But almost all of us thought that they were going to win it last year for Klopp, and it felt like a storybook. And so it very much didn't end that way, as we know. And then we expected the Sir Alex drop of several levels down to where David Moyes takes over. Richard, sorry, and
we are 3 minutes into this chat, and already the shots have been fired.
I'm very sorry. That was very rude, and I have no basis for that. But I would just say we expected Klopp leaving us to be the start of the trip through the wilderness, and for Arne to take things over and seemingly have the boys settled and organized and kind of full of belief again. It's pinch me is what I would say. It's the opposite of covering the Cowboys right now. So let's work together, Richard, and try to get Liverpool over the finish line.
Just imagine if you had an affiliation with Everton and the Cowboys. Then you'd be in trouble, Bob. I tell you who isn't in trouble. A bit like the Arne Slot-led Liverpool team, Andy Reid and those Kansas City Chiefs, because I'll tell you, I've heard pretty much every accusation thrown their way this season. They're not explosive. They're not as dynamic as previous Chiefs teams. The run's got to come to an end. And yet here we are. Not only are the Kansas City Chiefs in the big dance, but they're there with the best record in football this season. How do they do it?
It's a great question. It's a rare treat. And people, I think that's the takeaway is making sure everybody, especially in this current day, Richard, where people get really tired of excellence really fast. And people are literally saying, I'm tired of the Chiefs. I want someone else to win.
Well, let me stop you there, because this is something I want to pick up on. It's something I heard as soon as the AFC Championship game was done. I'm not really interested. It's boring. It's the same old thing. And yet, I've got to be honest with you. I come from a completely different angle on this. I'm like, here we are. You've got a team standing on the verge of history, the three-peat.
Yes.
Never been done. And especially in an era of a salary cap. If this happens, I don't know where you put it across the sporting fraternity, but it is remarkable.
They would deserve an honor guard. Wouldn't you not agree that
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
the opponents should properly honor what? No, we are on the same page on this one, sir, and I think that speaks to your overall intelligence. That we agree, and I think greatness is so rare. And I think our sports are set up to fight greatness. They want parity. They want everyone to feel like they have a chance. And those rare times, Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, those rare times where a special player leads a special team to special team achievements to a point where it almost feels like everybody else is playing for second, and that they have, of course, the conspiracies that the league is trying to help them. We definitely know that in the Premier League. Oh, I can't get a call here, can't get a penalty there, and it's part of our psychology that it sort of breaks our brain if a team is too good. And I welcome that because I am 52 and certainly more white in my beard than its original color. And I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like this other than Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, where we can beat you in so many ways that now it's between your ears of how are we going to beat you, not are we going to beat you. And so what I see from the Chiefs, I have no affiliation. I have no reason to like them, hate them, or be indifferent. But almost like that day where I was with Spike Lee at Highbury in 2004, watching Arsenal beat Charlton Athletic 2-0. I will say to you, Richard, that as a neutral, I was just happy to see the Invincibles live. And that is how I stand with the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know that my grandkids will care, but when I get grandkids, I want to tell them that I saw the Chiefs win 3 straight Super Bowls because that's never been done.
Uh, what is the formula though? We'll talk about the Eagles in a moment, but I just want to touch upon this because
Okay.
in a sport that is statistically driven, you look
Yes.
at the offensive and defensive side of the ball, and yeah, look, defensively, this Chiefs team have been better, not just this season, but for the last 2 years. But they're not top of the league in any category. They're a top 10
Right.
overall defense. I think they finished the regular season ninth overall. Offensively, they're pretty much middle of the road in every
Yes.
major statistic. And
Yes.
yet they've got that something special, intangible element to them that when the game is on the line, they find a way.
Boy, I love that you're hitting on this too because I consider myself an analytic moderate where I know the materials, I took all the courses, I've read all the books, but I don't believe they determine everything. And I do think if I were to speak in a classroom like I have to the young up and comers in my business, I would be like, look, analytics can teach us a lot, but it can't teach us everything. There are certain things that are immeasurable, unquantifiable, that are still absurdly important in the games people play. And part of it is just you talking noise to me while I'm trying to make a 5-foot putt because we can't exactly measure that on a piece of paper, but I'm telling you, it does affect me and it does affect most humans. And so it's all degrees of that. And so when you say, what is the formula? The beauty of these teams to a certain extent is it's difficult to pin down. It's certainly difficult to measure on a spreadsheet, but it's there. And so when you say what makes the Chiefs specifically special or rare or historic, it's clearly a special head coach meets a special quarterback. So let's start there. And in that you have a strategist who understands offense at a very, very high level, despite his age being in that age group where we normally say coaches are antiquated, set in their ways, and old dogs who can't learn new tricks. Well, Andy Reid is just as old as all of them and just as modern as the youngest guy with a slide ruler. And so we have all of those things to think about. Then we have Patrick Mahomes, who appears to be a quarterback who, yes, has made all the money and done all the things, but he does not seem terribly affected by any of it. He kind of seems like he's still the same Patrick Mahomes who we saw as a kid at Texas Tech. And at that point, he was just the son of a baseball player who looks like he can play football pretty well. So there was no real signs of that. He was not a overwhelming winner at the college level. And then you take their defensive coordinator is Steve Spagnuolo, who certainly was not successful as a head coach, but as a defensive coordinator has helped put the Chiefs in a situation where their defense properly fits their offense. Meaning, maybe over the course of a game, we're not going to dominate you. But at that late moment, in that late situation where we need to make one play, we have a defense that can do it as well as an offense. And so from there, once you get that leadership in place, and this is why, comparing it to the Cowboys is often so funny, is it does start at the top and rolls downhill. And if you get those positions filled, you have a chance. If you don't get them filled, a la the Cowboys, you're spinning in the wind and so forth. But to the Chiefs' standpoint, once you have that leadership in place, quarterback who does not seem selfish and does not seem self-absorbed and does not seem lost in whatever affects certain guys, Aaron Rodgers, and then you have two coaches who do not seem insecure either. Then it all starts rolling into the veins of anybody who puts on the uniform as they start realizing the ethos and what I'm supposed to do and the superpowers because I'm now a Kansas City Chief. So a lot of it does sound like hocus pocus mysticism and all this, but I'm telling you, there's something to me knowing no matter what happens, I'm going to beat you today. And that's where they are. And they can be beat. We know this. But you better be ready for a battle of a lifetime because they are going to play 60 minutes. And even if you have them down for 58, they know they can still figure out a way to pull this out in the end. And that's special and rare. And we should appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's been the remarkable thing about their run, certainly through the regular season games, which they seem destined to lose. They find a way by hook or by crook. I also love that for all the bad traits, you've got a tangible example that's just a throwaway line that we could all relate to there. I do want to pick up on Steve Spagnuolo, though, because
yes.
I was fortunate enough to spend some time with him ahead of last year's Super Bowl in Vegas. And the one thing that came across to me loud and clear was how self-deprecating he is. It's all about his players. It's not really about him. I am not buying any of that. There's no defensive coordinator in the history of the NFL that's won as many Super Bowls as him. He's got 4 to his name. It'll be 5, extending that record if they get the win on Sunday night. And the reason I'm interested in him and I find this matchup perhaps the most intriguing of all is because Steve Spagnuolo's defenses have been there, bought the T-shirt. They've got the trophies on the cabinet to show they can get it done. And yet, time and time again, we hear in this game, it's defense which wins championships. Well, here come the Philadelphia Eagles, ranked number 1 overall, number 1 against the pass, number 2 in points allowed. They seem on paper to be the complete team. But we've been here 2 years ago, and it was a fascinating matchup then.
Yes, there's no doubt about it, and that chess match is completely fascinating. And the Eagles are no slouch. Now, I do feel disclosure is important. I can't stand the Eagles. I've never been able to stand the Eagles. I just, personal experience and team allegiances. I just want anyone knowing going in, especially since you're touting your record against the spread, Richard. I do not provide very good gambling advice. As my own record would
I am not
indicate.
aware of that this season, Bob.
Well,
Do you want to expand?
It's been a very tough year for me. Just to let the people know, I closely avoided relegation and having to carry a puppet around with me at the Super Bowl all week long, like one of my colleagues did. That said, I don't like Philadelphia at all, but they are the blueprint for me for team building and for understanding that sustainability and risk taking as a organization, as a boardroom, if you will, is vital. And but also controlled and having a philosophy and sticking to it and all these things that Howie Roseman is becoming famous for. The Eagles capture that really well. So what they've done with their defense is quite phenomenal. Obviously, Vic Fangio is a fantastic coordinator, and he has been in many places. By the way, another guy who tried head coaching and it didn't go great, like Spagnuolo. And so there's something to that. There's something about, I don't want to say egoless because they both wanted to be head coaches and have their own operation. But once it didn't work, they became quite secure in their role and not and just wanting to complete what the head coach is trying to do on the other side of the ball, because we often hire offensive minded head coaches for many reasons that make a lot of sense to me, but at times they will hire a defensive counterpart who is off doing something completely different and doesn't seem that worried about a cogent, complete view of the sport and how offense and defense should complement each other and fit together and all these types of things. And so in both cases, Spagnuolo with the Chiefs, Fangio with the Eagles, they do seem to have a good feel for how does this not only help our defense succeed, but how does this help our organization succeed? And those sometimes are different answers. And so the key to the Eagles, and the reason why I think this is amazing, how certain teams like the Los Angeles Lakers always land on their feet and certain teams feel cursed, is the Eagles lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs 2 years ago. And then because their organization knows what they're doing, they were able to basically leave the next draft, the 2023 draft, with, in my opinion, the best player in that draft. So when I went through and looked at the 2023 draft, I felt if I had the number one pick overall, Bryce Young would be a consideration if I need a quarterback. But if I don't need a quarterback, I'm taking Jalen Carter. I'm taking Jalen Carter as the number one pick because he's an absolute game wrecker. He is a destroyer. He is a war daddy, as Jerry Jones might say. However you want to call a guy in the middle of the line who destroys all of your ideas. And the Chiefs or the Eagles got him. And if, for those who know how the draft works, if you lose the Super Bowl, you pick 31st. Well, they had some previous trades that had them picking like 15th, and then they saw Jalen Carter slide to 9th because he was involved in some things off the field that weren't great, and they jumped up to number 9 to get him. And so it wasn't happenstance, it wasn't blind luck, it wasn't just a lucky penny. They made several moves to target this one guy that might lead them back to a Super Bowl, and when they get there, it might lead them to a win. And so that's one of the great storylines, is how do you lose the Super Bowl and then start the next season with the best player available to the draft? And the Eagles did it, and that's one of the big reasons why they're here. It's really a great story. If I didn't hate the organization so much, I would trumpet it louder. They fail, and then they get right back to work, and they get they try to note what did we do wrong, and then they build again. And that's what we all hope for from our teams in any sport, is that they have a philosophy, they have convictions, they understand failure is a big part of our games, and then they just get back to work, and they're relentless in their pursuit of greatness.
And for me, this is the remarkable thing about the 2024 Eagles organization, because we're often told that you can build a roster through the draft or you can try and do it through free agency. Rarely can you do it through both. So here you go. You go into the draft and you add a big piece to your defensive line to bring pressure to the opposing offense. And then through free agency, you go and pick up arguably the best running back on the market. And he is a game wrecker on offense. So now you have the Philadelphia Eagles, the top 10 rush defense. They're the second best rush offense. They've got the leading rusher in the NFL. In the postseason alone, I think he's got 442 yards on the ground, 5 touchdowns. This is a game that travels anywhere. And so I'm saying the Eagles, on paper at least, should be favorites going into this game. So why are they not?
Well, they're not, because the other side has that guy, right? And so I don't know that it's a fair point spread or a true point spread, because I think all of us in our heart of hearts know what you said is correct, and also know that I'm not picking against the Chiefs, and so I don't know that that's logical. I think when you say this team is better, but this team has this one guy, and we all know when we buy financial stocks or bonds or whatever, they will quickly tell us, Richard, that past performance is not indicative of future success. And then we all nod, and then we ignore it, because
then we go the other way.
Then we go the other way. So I would say here's what's funny. I was leaning hard on the Buffalo Bills last week or the week before. And so I do, in my heart of heart, think the Chiefs are ripe to be taken. They are, they're beatable. But I also,
What is it? 12 one-score games they've won
yes,
without defeat. That doesn't happen.
no, it doesn't happen. And I thought the Bills were the better team, and I thought it was the Bills' time, and I thought they had learned from their mistakes, and I thought this is the moment. And then let me tell you this, Richard, the moment the kickoff happened, the opening kickoff, I thought to myself, what am I thinking? I'm not pay. Why did I pick the Bills in this game? I know what's going to happen. And then I sat
This
there
is
for
where I
3
can be
hours.
smug, because my argument on that preview show was, on paper, the Bills are the better team, but I am not betting against the Kansas City Chiefs, and certainly not at Arrowhead Stadium in a championship game.
Why did I not listen to you?
But they did it.
I need to be listening to you more carefully.
But I will say this, going to your point about not having a lot of fondness for the Philadelphia Eagles. Anybody watching this show on YouTube will see that helmet over my right shoulder. It's got a star on it. That'll tell you all you need to know about personal preferences on this show.
Yeah.
And yet, I
look at this one.
Yeah, they're not in the Super Bowl either, Bob.
No, they're not, but personal preferences. So I want to disclose how I feel.
It was the Green Bay Packers, if you're listening and not watching.
It was. Hopefully you can identify a worldwide icon like the little Green Bay Packers.
But yeah, I look at the Eagles, and I've already laid it out on offense, on defense. And here's the thing that should be the cherry on top of the icing, on top of the cake. Turnover differential in the postseason. +10. Philly haven't turned it over once. Everything says going into this game that they are the better team on paper. And I guess this is why we love sports so much, because nothing's ever decided on paper. It's what happens out there on the field on Sunday night.
Yes. I would add to that, though, the argument for the Chiefs, like, if you're going to pick football games, usually you would say, who has the better quarterback? And then you would say, who has the better head coach? And then you would say, who's more comfortable in this setting and who might be a little nervy and might make a mistake that's uncharacteristic. And so I think all three of those go to Kansas City. They have the better quarterback, and I don't even think it's close. I think Jalen Hurts is fine. I think Patrick Mahomes might be the greatest quarterback in football history. And I realize that's biting off a mouthful, but I think it's possibly true. We're watching something I've never seen before. Then they clearly have the better coach. Nick Sirianni's fine. Andy Reid's a legend. And finally, they play in the Super Bowl every year. So the idea that this is just a game is probably laughable for anybody. But for the Chiefs, it actually might be true. This is their 5th Super Bowl. They're pretty comfortable here. They do this pretty often. This is kind of where they live. So those three things, and to your Eagles turnover stat, I agree. But they've all been home games, and they've all been games in which they've been favored, and they've all been in games in which they had total control of the game. What happens if you're in the second half against the Chiefs, and you know as an offense that we have to score because the Chiefs are going to score on top of us, and so we've got to keep up with them, and so now we're forcing the ball into tighter spots, and that's where we get into trouble. So I believe it's a sound argument to say the Eagles are probably going to make more mistakes on Sunday than they normally make at home as a big favorite in control of the game, because I don't think they'll be in control of this game if Patrick Mahomes has anything to say about it, and he always does. And so that's why we keep arriving back at just be safe and take the Chiefs.
Okay, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to call the game, but one final thought on this Eagles offense, which has been very impressive, predicated on a run game that's been dominant in the postseason. If this Chiefs defense finds a way to quieten down, not necessarily bottle up, but quieten down Saquon Barkley, how concerned should we be about Jalen Hurts and the Eagles passing game?
I thought he was really good in the NFC title game. But overall, I believe that the best way to beat the Eagles is to make Jalen Hurts play quarterback. And that sounds condescending and insulting, and I don't mean it to, because I think he's a very, very talented player, and he's kind of perfect for what they need. But I think the more he has to pass the ball, the the smaller the window is for the Eagles to win. Now, he's going to hit A.J. Brown if you play man and you let them go up top to A.J. Brown. The Devontae Smith is dangerous and Dallas Goedert's fine. They got great weapons. Dak would love weapons like Jalen Hurts has, but this isn't about Dak. But I mean, we're on the same page here. If you want to deal with these guys, then you need to take Saquon out of the game and make them move off script to do things they don't want to do, which is, drop Jalen Hurts. By the way, make him roll left because he can't. He always rolls right. And so Spagnuolo is going to know this. He's going to bring blitzes from the side and try to force them. And usually that will give the Chiefs a good advantage. So I expect a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts. And frankly, I don't think if they can boil it down to a quarterback duel, I don't think he can deal with Patrick Mahomes. But I know that puts me with about 8 billion other people on the planet that probably feel that exact same, dare I say, obvious direction.
It was bizarre. 2 years ago, of course, the Eagles went in at the half with a 10-point advantage.
Yes.
And we had perhaps there were several defining moments in the game, but certainly one of them was the Jalen Hurts fumble and Nick Bolton takes it to the house for a defensive touchdown. What are the chances of us seeing something similar happen against an Eagles team that haven't turned the ball over in the postseason on Sunday night?
I think multiple takeaways will determine this game, and so I think Spagnuolo will find a way to get the ball out and cause turnovers. They have some real opportunistic playmakers on that. Basically, I think the Eagles have to figure out how do we score a touchdown a quarter, because I think 28's probably the number, maybe 31. How can we score a touchdown a quarter without turning the ball over multiple times? And that's the trick. And that's a real tiny tunnel to try to get into and get through. And I think common sense says the Chiefs are the smart play. At the same time, it should be a heck of a game because I think it's two really good football teams.
Yeah, and here's the thing. In each of the 3 Super Bowls in recent years that Kansas City have won, incredibly, at one point or other in that game, they've trailed by double digits and yet found a way to come back. It's remarkable. Okay, here we go. We've got several lines then for you to cast your eye over, Bob. We're going to start with Philadelphia Eagle points in the game. The markets over here have that line set at 24.5. Bear in mind, Kansas City only give up around 19 a game on average during the course of the regular season. You've just said Philly, if they're going to win the Super Bowl, need to score an average of a touchdown a game. Do they go do they score 25 or more?
I don't think they do. I think 21 to 24 is kind of what I'm expecting. So I'm going to say I would go under on that.
So the total points.
Nobody should be listening to any of these picks. I will make them all, but I want everyone to know that my confidence level is extremely low on this sort of thing.
Well, here's the good thing, because I'm bringing the confidence.
Okay,
I agree with you. I think they will score fewer than 25 points in this game. And you look at it 2 years ago, I think it was 38-35 in the end to the Chiefs. And you look at the two offenses and the fact that Kansas City put up over 30 points, I think, for the first time all season in the AFC Championship game. So there's a suggestion they're running into form. I just think we've seen a number of relatively high-scoring games. The majority of them have been in recent Super Bowls. I think we're due for a relatively low-scoring tight one. So, and I can't get it. There's something in the back of my mind that says, look, I know they put 55 on Washington last time out, but against the Rams and in games before that, this offense just hasn't fired. Right. They've been scoring low 20s. So I think the Chiefs defense, it's big game team, big game players, been there, done it, wore the T-shirt. I think they're holding us below 25, which brings us on to the total points spread. The line's 49 total points for this game, over or under.
Okay. I like over, actually. How about that? Not by a ton, but I do like. I think a 30-23 is probably where I'm at.
I think it's a really good line. If there's a turnover that's taken to the house, it's going to be over. And I do like this Chiefs defense. They managed to churn players in. They've got quality players in the secondary that left from last year. They draft well. In comes McDuffie to lead the secondary now. I'm going to go over 49 as well, which is a bit worrying because we seem to be in lockstep here, Bob, and I know your record.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, this is the big one then.
Okay.
The markets over here have the Chiefs as 1.5-point favorites. In other words, they can't decide between these two teams.
Right.
We've said it could be low scoring, it could be tight. Where are you going with 1.5 points?
I feel like the Chiefs. I don't, if I'm going to speak with convictions for half an hour with you about why the Chiefs are the Chiefs, I'm not gonna turtle now. I'm going to say I feel like the Chiefs win by 5 or 6. So I'm going to roll with them.
I don't know how many they win by, but I think they win, and if they win, they cover the spread.
Yeah.
By hook or by crook, they just find a way with the game on the line. There aren't many Eagles fans that are probably listening to us at this point in the previous show, Bob, but there you go. Before I let you go, what's the rest of the week looking like for you?
Well, it's going to be this madness of this big Dallas Mavericks move, which appears to have blown up my Super Bowl.
We haven't even touched upon that. Yeah, that came out of the blue.
It came out of the blue, and it's going to. A lot of people are hurting right now. This is a big sports heartbreak for a lot of people in this city, and so I thought we would be talking football all week, but I do know the first couple of days is going to be helping people heal from the Mavericks sending away their favored son, Luka Doncic. So, what are you going to do? But I'm also going to find a lot of great food here. So it can't all be bad.
What a time to be a sports broadcaster in Dallas, eh?
Indeed, it always is.
All right, Bob, look, really appreciate your time. Begrudgingly, glad things with Liverpool are going well for you. What goes around comes around. Eventually, it'll come. Well, it won't come to Goodison because we're leaving there at the end of this season. So, but look, have a fantastic week. Enjoy the Super Bowl.
Yes, thank you, and I'll see you in Merseyside in 60 days or so.
Many thanks to Bob Sturm joining us from New Orleans. Super Bowl week is well and truly in full swing. And just to recap, not 1, not 2, but 3 picks for the one game against the line offered. It's the biggest game of them all, and we are going big on Graves on Gridiron. So here it is. Philadelphia Eagles points for this game go under the line of 24.5 points for the game. Total points both teams combined. The line's 49. Go above that, over 49 points combined for the game. And then calling the game itself, Eagles Chiefs 1.5 point favorites. Is this the year they create NFL history? You better believe it. We're taking the Chiefs not only to win, but to cover the line at minus 1.5 points as well. The record going into Super Bowl 59 for the postseason on this show is 7-4-1. Can we make it 10-4-1? We're about to find out. Strap yourselves in, sit back and enjoy. It's the greatest show on earth. It's Super Bowl 59. So long, everybody.